So I've been watching the news about the pipeline that they're trying to put through from Canada down to Illinois, I think, and it's going to go through Native American territory, the Lakota tribe, and the ongoing struggle by the Native Americans to prevent that. And it got me to thinking about how all of this used to be Native American land, and for thousands and thousands of years. And whether you believe in the magic and the rituals that they did or not, the fact is that they did cultivate this land for their own purposes, and they cultivated it with a larger ecology in mind and over thousands of years. And so what we have now is a disruption that's occurred over the past few hundred years. And that disruption is so complete that it has wiped out any memory of the former cultivation and the rituals that occurred to live on this land. And so I go down to the inner city and walk through the skyscrapers and everything, and the thing that really grabs me is that the people there are so divorced from the larger ecology, you know, the forests and the lakes and the deserts and things like that. They have no concept that I can see that those things exist or are important. So the question is that because of this disruption, how has it affected the larger ecology, and how will that larger ecology respond? Will it respond favorably to these few hundred years of changing everything, or will it try to go back to a tempo and a rhythm that had been in place for thousands of years? And one of the things that I realized, because I've been in the city and I've spent a lot of time out in wilderness areas for years, and one of the things that I know is that if you're in the city for a long time and you go out to a wilderness area, first of all, people get really uncomfortable. They don't know what to do. There's no distraction. But if you just experience that and stay with it, you begin to experience the larger ecology. And sometimes that can take months or years to experience it. But after a while, the larger ecology going around you begins to become very apparent, and you experience that emotionally and intellectually, that indeed the forest and the wildlife and the lakes and the streams are this living mechanism all around us. And we can tinker with parts of it, but everything we tinker with, it is larger than us, and it will respond in a much larger way. And it seems like the Native Americans and a lot of people prior to the Industrial Age had a grip of that you know, you have to live on the land and respect the larger ecology. And that's the best way I can put it, is larger ecology, but in fact it is just the ecology. So yeah, that's my question right now, is that how is this larger ecology going to respond to this disruption that has occurred over the past couple of hundred years? And it almost is like, which side are you on? Do you continue to invest in this temporary disruption, or do you step back and begin to allow yourself to experience the larger ecology and then invest your time and energy or your rituals and cultivation in that? And I think that's where we're at right now as human beings. And it's a very difficult question, because this momentary disruption, even as short as it is vast in scope. And it's not easy to just say, well, I'm not going to do this anymore, and I'm just going to go out to the wilderness, and I'm not going to plug into it at all. Very difficult. However, it is, I mean, the larger ecology is responding. And, you know, you can put a moralistic view on that or not, but in fact it is responding just as a physical mechanism it's responding. If you want to go into whether it's responding as a living entity, that's another topic entirely. And the Native Americans considered it a living entity as well as a physical entity. Excuse me. Anyway, that's the question. You have thousands of years of cultivation by humans, which was based on understanding the larger ecology as a living entity and as a physical entity that responds to everything we do. You cannot do one thing in the ecology. Everything you do has a response. And so what do we do now? As the floods get worse and the droughts get worse and the glaciers are melting, it's responding. It's talking back to us. And we are caught in this mechanism of city life and traffic and shopping and digging up more resources to fill the stores with more stuff, because everybody's livelihood, everybody's the way that we put food on the table is through that large mechanism, that large disruption that has occurred over the past 200 years. But in fact, what we're doing is just a tiny portion of the larger ecology. And I'll leave with this. Not only is there a larger ecology on this planet, but this planet is in a solar system, and that ecology affects us. So if we disrupt the moon or we disrupt Mars, it will respond in a physical and living way. If we expand that out to the galaxy or as far as you want to go, it is a larger ecology. And it just, when I go into the cities, I just see that people are, they're just caught in this, I don't even know what to call it. It's just a myopic consumer frenzy. Everybody thinks that by buying, they're going to have the ultimate shopping experience. And I'm guilty of that too. When in fact, there is this life going on around us, this larger entity of ecology. So yeah, the pipeline going through the Lakota Native American tribes is very poignant, and the videos there, watching them stand up to the federal police, are very poignant, because that really is the line in the sand. It's, are we going to continue to use fossil fuels and disrupt the larger ecology, or are we going to consider that the larger ecology is a living and physical entity that will respond in much greater ways than we can understand or deal with? And a little respect for that is in order. Or maybe a lot of respect, because in fact, drastic changes are occurring right now in this living entity we call the ecology. And in fact, the only way that we communicate with each other anymore is through these electronic devices, which could easily be shut down in a variety of ways. It's all based on technology that is a minor part of the larger ecology. So, which rituals, which cultivations do we do now? Which ones feel right? And that's the thing that I'm really grasping, is that I keep meeting people who are suddenly wakening up to this ecology and saying, oh, what do I do now? Because it seems like, when the ice caps are melting and the largest mass extinction of species ever to occur is happening right now, the idea of investing a lot in my career in a downtown inner city area seems counterproductive. But then again, what door opens up? What's the next step? So I would highly suggest for people to go out. Don't bring anything with you. Don't bring your cell phone, especially, because one of the things I notice in the city is you go to the city parks and everyone is walking around talking alone on their cell phone. Not to each other in person in real time. They're talking to somebody somewhere else. Or they're texting or looking things up online. And no, go and park yourself under a tree for as long as you can and just begin to ask these questions. Begin to ask what your role is as a human being on this planet, and how can you affect the larger institutions that are keeping this disruptive mechanism in place. Because indeed it may be that we can guide this mechanism, this larger institution, to respect the larger ecology. That's a tall order, I know, and it seems impossible, but it's, you never know. Or does the whole thing have to collapse, and we'll have millions of people dead, and if it's unlikely that anyone would survive that, considering the nuclear radiation and the chemical spills that would occur, but that's certainly a possibility too, because the larger ecology really doesn't care. And the Native Americans felt like the white people in our culture were a momentary experience in this world, and that indeed we were about to wipe each other out, and we would no longer be the dominant culture. And the culture they had over thousands of years and all that cultivation and all the rituals would return. So that's certainly a possibility. However, the science I read about it just seems like we would so totally damage the environment with our pollution and, like I said, the nuclear and chemical spills. And of course, some life could live, microbes and smaller creatures would adapt to it, but anything that we recognize as civilization would be totally gone. So yeah, if we do want to guide this mechanism and the institutions of this mechanism, most importantly, the corporations, the churches, anyone who keeps telling you to repeat the propaganda that this is sustainable, this is the only way of doing things, that resources are infinite, that we will never run out of resources, that technology will always save us, you need to begin to question those. And the more time you spend out in the wilderness, the easier it will be to find those questions and ask them.